Welcome, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Is this all right? I have an Apple Watch and it says 5 o'clock, so if you non-Apple people, you can be critical if you wish. But I'm Bill Clark with Hometown Heritage, and welcome to the 24th installment of honoring a recipient in Perry to the Wall of Witnesses. We're very excited about our installment tonight of Dallas Pete Van Kirk, to have his family here and all of you here to help us honor him with a relief on the Wall of Witnesses. This particular event is a co-sponsorship between the Perry Historic Preservation Commission and Hometown Heritage. In a few minutes, Connie McGuire, the president of the Historic Commission, will come up and greet you and tell you a little bit more about their organization and how this selection was made. This particular event was begun by Hometown Perry, Iowa, now Hometown Heritage, back in 2004. And as we mentioned, today is the 24th recipient of one of these awards, the Wall of Witnesses. I want to first of all, before I tell you a little bit of history about this, I want to say thanks to a few people and make some introductions. I want to thank the Hotel Patty, Tom Maxwell, Aaron Lenz, and all the staff there for not only giving us the space to use, but the chairs, the podium, the speaker system, and beyond that, not only helping us with that and providing a wall for us to put reliefs up on, but beyond that, Tom has offered tonight that if any of you would be so kind as to stay for dinner at the hotel has committed that they will take 10% of the total receipts tonight and make a contribution to Hometown Heritage and to the Perry Historic Preservation Commission. And I want to thank them for that. I'd like to introduce our staff and board to you. Now, Carol Crosby is our new programming director. Carol, wave. And so if you haven't met Carol, please stop in. We're open Tuesdays through Fridays at the Carnegie Library Museum across the street, and stop in and see the many things we have going on there. Most of you got a card tonight, which in my closing remarks tonight, if you haven't already said enough's enough and left, I'll tell you a little bit more about this Becoming American program that we have going on right now at Hometown Heritage. But I wanted you to meet Carol Crosby. Marilee Bales is also on staff with us, as well as Carrie Corrigan. I'd like to have each one of our board members with Hometown Heritage to stand, and then I'll introduce all of the board members, but I'd like you to see how many of them are here. So if you're a trustee of the Hometown Heritage Full Heart Carnegie Charitable Trust, would you please stand? Pretty good group, isn't it? So we have Mayor John Andorf over here, Betsy Peterson, Pastor Andrea Brownlee. Who else am I? Our superintendent of schools, Clark Wicks. Rich Jones is president of Perry Economic Development. Who else am I missing here? Now, Dr. McCauley's not only on the former superintendent, but he's on the school board and is a trustee, one of the permanent trustees we have here. So, and he's a council person as well. I saw Chuck Schott, a council person, not on our board yet. Chuck, where are you? But I want to introduce you as a council person. So Sven Peterson, the city administrator, is on the trustee board. Pam Jenkins, many of you know Pam, is a sociologist in New Orleans. John Lusink is the architect who is responsible for all the renovations of the hotel, the Carnegie Library Museum, and the building behind you, the First National Bank building and the Security National Bank. Mary Murphy, is Mary here anywhere? Mary's the library director. Leo Landis is the state curator with the State Historical Society, and Rosa Gonzalez is the president of Hispanics United for Perry. Lindsay Pasuti is the executive director of the chamber, and that is our board at Hometown Heritage, and I wanted to be respectful and let you know who's involved. Some of the history that we wanted you to know about was I happened to be in Murphy's, California on a planning trip with Howard and Roberta Amundsen. If any of you have ever been to Murphy's, California, you know it's kind of a tourist place. But in downtown Murphy's, there is a drugstore, and on the side of the drugstore is a wall that is not unlike this one, only it's a lot older and a lot bigger at this point. And it had a title on it, and it was called The Wall of Comparative Ovations. And as Mrs. Amundsen took me to the wall, she said, I want to know, I've got an idea of what we'd like to do in Perry. And there were all kinds of people from that area who had been embossed on that wall in some kind of ceramic relief. The idea was that she said, you know, if we could come up with a criteria of people who have been meaningful in the life of Perry, it would be a wonderful thing to every year honor those people with a relief. Now, we're not talking about a statue of General MacArthur when he comes back from the war. We're talking about people who spent their time making Perry a better place to live. And so we came up with 3 criteria that had to be followed, and Connie will tell you a little bit more about how the selection process goes. But those 3 criteria are these. They must have a tie to Perry, they must have an interesting story, and they must have had an impact on the area. I think you will agree with me that as you look at the wall and look at the people, these are all people who have been meaningful and made an impact on this area. The Wall of Witness name came from a Bible verse. Some of you might be familiar with Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 1. And it says this, therefore, since we are surrounded by such great a cloud of witnesses, and then it goes on to talk about those witnesses, and we thought, what a fitting way to honor people who had been meaningful to Perry. That these people behind me, and the one we will honor tonight, stand as witnesses to me and to you that we are going to care for this community in the same way that they did. That's what that verse meant, and that's what we mean in presenting this to you tonight. We've had a great amount of success and made a lot of friends through this process. And we want you to hear more about it, so I'm going to ask Connie McGuire to come now and tell us a little bit about the process, and then we'll tell you what we're going to do from there.
Good afternoon. Hello? Is it on? Is it on? There. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to welcome all of you to our presentation of this year's recipient of the Wall of Witness. We on the Perry Historical Preservation Commission are very pleased to be partnering with Hometown Heritage in presenting this award. Our commission consists of 7 members and are appointed by the mayor with the approval of the council. The members are, please stand if you're here, Julie Scheib, John Palmer, Cliff Fagan, Jean Peel, Joe McCarty, Alyssa Whitmore, and myself. We are chosen for staggered terms of 3 years. Our associate members are Larry Bodnick, is he here? Chris Hines, and Liberty Willett. We started the process of selecting a person for the Wall of Witness in April by handing out nomination forms in businesses around Perry. After compiling our new nominee list and adding the nominees from previous years, each voting member then takes home the packet of names and makes a choice of their top 3. A non-voting member of the commission then tallies up to see who our top candidate is. If there is a tie, members will vote again to determine a top nominee. This year, our recipient was Pete Van Kirk. Pete moved to Perry in 1965, and since that time has been heavily involved with the community. Pete supported many community projects. That list would include the high school athletic department, high school baseball field, DMAC, Van Kirk Career Academy, McCreary Community Building, and scholarships for high school seniors going off to college, just to name a few. Most times you could find him at the Perry Progressive Foundry, a place where he built a successful business, employing more than 100 people. On behalf of the commission, I would like to congratulate the Van Kirk family on Pete having been chosen as a recipient of the Wall of Witness Award. In short, the city has been very fortunate to have had Pete as a member of this community. Thank you.
Thanks, Connie. Thanks again to the Historic Preservation Commission for their partnership with us, and it has helped to make this an even more successful event. Thanks very much for your good work. I'm going to introduce now Rick Stewart. We were talking beforehand tonight about the fact that Rick had done 15 of these reliefs that you see, including the one that you'll see tonight. And he's going to tell you a little bit about the process. I want to tell you a little bit about Rick. We select Rick, and we've been fortunate enough to keep him interested in doing things in Perry for a long time. Rick is one of the, he lives in Newton, has a gallery in Newton and a studio in Newton, has for a long time been known as one of the best sculptors in the Midwest. For a number of years worked with RDG and has worked on his own now for a long time. He's not only a great sculptor, but a great teacher. My own son is a sculptor, and Rick was his mentor, and has taught at the Des Moines Art Center and many places around the Midwest. So help me in welcoming again our good friend and excellent artist from, although he does give me heart attacks once in a while about, is he going to be here, but our good friend in Perry, Rick Stewart. Rick, come and tell us about the process.
First of all, I have to thank you, all of you, for
Get real close to that mic.
being so kind as to have me do the sculpting for you. It's my pleasure, and I really love doing this sort of work, and so thank you very much for allowing me to do it. When I talked to Pete's sons, I wanted to get a sense of what Pete was like, since I had never met him, and there were several things that they told me. One of the things that he was an advocate for the workman, for a blue-collar worker.
You're going to have to speak right into that.
All right.
Yeah.
That he was an advocate for blue-collar workers. And so I'm hoping that he's going to be really understanding from looking up above there and down here, because I had some trouble with this last piece. Not in the sculpting. That was great. It was wonderful. It turned out really well. It was in the casting. And as the Van Kirks know, castings can sometimes have little mishaps with them. And one of the mishaps is called pinholing. Well, pinholing occurs when air is trapped. When you're pouring material into a mold, whether it's bronze or iron or whatever, it doesn't really matter what it is. These little air pockets get trapped in and they float to the surface, and so they make little small holes. And it occurred so late in the piece that I did not have a chance to get them quite all the way filled. So please bear with me, they will be corrected. There are a few pinholes in it tonight, but Bill said we've got to have this tonight. I said, okay. I always wait till it's the last minute. I don't wait, I should say. You have to have a deadline to get an artist to get their work out of the studio and on the wall. If you don't have a deadline, we'll keep it there for years. Well, it just needs, if I just do this, it'll be that much better, you know. So somebody has to just finally say stop. So Bill does that. He just stop. Well, you could bring it here. So anyway, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the general process for doing these, but what happens is once in a while, last year I got fortunate with Jim, and he was live, and I was able to go and sit and sculpt him, and it was great. We had a nice time. But most often it's sculpting from photographs, and so I had his sons find me some photographs that they really liked of their father, and I asked for front views, side views, three-quarter views. The more views I have, the more I can get a sense of, because when you're doing a relief sculpture, it's unlike a photograph, it's just just up and down and side to side. That's all you have to be concerned about. But there's a third dimension, and it's not only that third dimension, but if you imagine, if you take and look at a head from side view, you have from here to here, okay? That's roughly 8-9 inches for the average person, okay? Well, now imagine taking that and sticking everything in a vise and squeezing it down till it's 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch thick. Well, that means everything in there has to be squeezed down at the same proportion, so that when you get done, it looks like it's a whole head there. It doesn't look like it's just a flat thing with a few little bumps on it. And so you end up eyeballing things a lot, you know. There's not a lot for relief sculpting. It's not like training to draw, for instance. You can train to draw. Relief sculpting is more intuitive. You end up having to kind of feel your way through it. I can show you some basic techniques, but you have to feel your way through it. And so, well, I'm not going to bore. My wife tells me I'll bore people to death with the details and stuff. But anyway, I'm happy that you let me do this work for you, and I hope you enjoy it. There are some tweakings that will be done here in the next few days, so I'll be back soon.
Yeah, just so you know approximately where this will go on the wall, we wanted to make sure. We thought if we went that direction, pretty soon you hide it behind the reconfiguration arches. So we're going to be going this direction and probably high, and some of that Boston ivy will come out of there, so we've got a nice place for it, and that's where this will be placed on the wall. There will also be a plaque underneath it, which I'm going to have Rick show you after we unveil everything else. And then I'll read something. There's actually going to be what we're putting on the wall here, and then there's going to be an extra plaque that we're going to give to the family to put in Pete's office or wherever it's most appropriate, and it's some kind of a tribute that Kirk and Derek had done, and I'll read that to you here in just a minute. But first we want to unveil Dallas Peak Van Kirk's sculpture, and I'm going to ask his wife Joyce to come up and help unveil that.
No, it wasn't.
Now I realize that not everybody can see it, but we'll give you a chance afterwards to come up and look at it. Okay. This is where you da 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 da. Dallas Pete Van Kirk, and down here it says advocate for blue collar. Blue collar advocate. Blue collar advocate. In addition to that, this will be
like him?
underneath.
Good.
It says Dallas Pete Van Kirk's education legacy included a love for DMAC and for Perry Community Schools. That will be underneath it. So, isn't that wonderful? Please do come up and get a closer look at that afterwards when we take time for refreshments. Here's what the next plaque, which won't be on the wall, as I said, but it will be given to the family. Dad, nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. Dallas Pete Van Kirk.
I just want to say one more thing.
Speak right into that.
You guys told me that your dad gave employees, you know, the guys, more than one chance. If something happened, he was more than willing to let somebody come back and try it again. That's what I'm hoping for. He's going to let me come back and try getting this right this next time. I get my little repairs made. So, thank you.
He's an outstanding sculptor, but next year I'm telling him to come the day before. He'll not know the real day.
Hey, that's a great idea. Make it a week, though.
We wanted to give a chance for family members and others. I've had at least one other person indicate they'd like an opportunity to share a little bit about their memories of Pete. And I know we've got some family members. Joyce, I don't know if you were one. I know Kirk is, Derek is, David Repp is going to say a few words, the stepson. Janelle Repp will say, stepdaughter, and Joelle will also say something. And then I know Rich Samish mentioned something to me about the possibility. So I won't come and pop up and down, but why don't you come right after one another when you're ready to say a few words. And I just ask you, for the sake of people clear back there, that you really put this up close to your mouth and project. So thank you. So who's going to start?
Adventure, passion, and politics. I'm David Repp. I am Pete Van Kirk's stepson. I am son of Joyce, who we married. Adventure. So when I first got to know Pete, it was in the early 1990s. After my father died in 1989, I didn't know if my mother would ever find another romance or love in her life. So I was very excited to know that she was involved in another relationship. Met Pete. Pete's a very outgoing, engaging guy. Back in the 1990s, my sister and I and brother and friends would frequently take annual canoe trips down the Raccoon River here in Perry, the North and the Middle Raccoon. That particular year, we had made a plan to go canoeing in our group down the Middle Raccoon River. Pete caught wind of that and said, "Joyce, I want to go." So we've included them in our group, and we had a very good time. We canoed on a Saturday, and the Middle Raccoon, if you know anything about that, it's kind of a small little river, but we had a big rain the day before, and it was such a big rain we were kind of concerned that maybe it was too much. But nevertheless, we went ahead with the trip anyway. The water was kind of high, but we felt comfortable that we could stay in the middle and not get involved in too much of a problem. I didn't know anything at all about Pete's experience with a canoe. I know that my mother really hasn't canoed at all. She was in the front. That's where you put people who don't know how to canoe. They're in the front. And went down the Raccoon River. It was kind of high. It was moving kind of quickly, but we were having a very good time. staying in the middle, and a couple of us got a little bit overly eager and was kind of playing, and there'd be a limb that might be coming down, and they would canoe over, and they would go underneath the limb and go back out in the main channel, and we did that a couple, 2 or 3 times with different people. And somehow Pete got in his craw that he wanted to do that too. So he went over, found a little limb over there, it was in the water, and I'm going to show off to my lovely bride over here and canoe over there, and got kind of sideways and got to the point where it wasn't going to go very well. They caught that limb kind of right in the middle of the canoe on sideways, and immediately that canoe, because the water was going so fast, turned sideways, water got in it, and before you knew it, they were out of the canoe in the water, hanging on to the edge of the canoe and the tree limbs. Oh my gosh. So we all went into emergency mode, went over there and rescued them, got them out of the water, and it took a lot of us to get that darn canoe dislodged from that pile of debris over there, and it was kind of scary, but it ended well that day. We gave them warm clothes and took their beer away, and the rest of it was mostly uneventful. Adventure. Passion. As I mentioned, the only reason that my mother and Pete would go on this trip because they clearly had a passion for each other. And I could see it in my mom's eyes, and the things that I saw that my stepfather Pete was doing for my mother just warmed my heart. I could clearly see it on Pete's side, and it was reciprocated on my mother's side. So I just really enjoy seeing that. That's a great memory for me. Politics. A lot of family gatherings, of course, and one of the sins is that you never talk about politics during family gatherings, but it's inevitable. Pete and I didn't always agree on political issues, but the one good thing about Pete was that he would listen. So we would talk, he would listen, he would say something back to you, and what it came down to generally is that, well, is that fact or perception? And maybe it's a little perception. Well, come back to me when you have facts. What was the best part about that is that we never had any bad feelings, never had any ill will. We always came away from these discussions feeling more informed and smarter than we were before. And wouldn't that be a great thing to have more of today? Yeah. Thank you.
You want me to go?
Okay. I'm Janelle Reb. Pete was my stepdad, daughter of Joyce. I hope you guys can hear me. All right. So I'm not as eloquent as David is, but I did want to share some memories of Pete and things. And when I think about Pete Van Kirk, I think about he's bigger than life, right? This is a guy that is just bigger than life. He's got a big personality, he's got a big voice, and a big laughter, right? When he's in the room, you know he's in the room. But you know, along with his big personality and big voice and everything else, he had big dreams and big ideas, not only for his family, but for the community of Perry. And you know, you can look around Perry, and we talked about this a little bit already tonight. You can look around, you can see how many things Pete, where he's left his fingerprints, you know, where he's had a positive impact, and it, you know, it's so heartwarming. And you know, I think probably most obvious would be the Foundry, right? So the Foundry, talking about, you know, Pete's dreams and big ideas. You know, he so long ago started there as an employee and worked his way up and had the dream of one day owning this big company and making it a success. And he achieved that dream. And not only did he achieve it, he made it into a big success, and now it's something that his family, they can carry it forward as part of a legacy, and it employs so many people here in the community, and it's something we can all be proud of. But in addition to the Foundry, I look around and I think, what else? Well, you don't have to look too far. You can see the Van Kirk Career Academy. What another wonderful thing that's in the community. You know, it provides skills and resources for everybody here, and you know, it enables people to further their careers and reach that career goal that they're all wanting to do. It's another great thing. But when I also think about Pete, I think about how much he volunteered and gave back to the community. And I think about, you know, him coaching athletics here in the community. He was passionate about that. I think about being a mentor and giving back to people that needed help or needed a little direction in their lives. But I also think about how he volunteered during, Christmas or holidays, serving meals, something he just did religiously every year, and, helping people that just needed a little more direction in their life, giving his time, his heart, and even financial support to those that needed a little assistance. But not only did he do things like this, but I know he had so much love for his family, his big extended family. And when I think about that, when we all came together, how do we, come together as a big family and share these life experiences? And one of the things he used to do was he would take us all on these big, fabulous vacations. And they were full of life memories for all of us, some of the best memories I've ever had. And one in particular that I remember really well, one of the first trips we went on was to Cancun, Mexico. And it was a great, great experience. But, one of my most fond memories when we were in Mexico was, you'd come down in the morning and you'd see everybody and there'd be Pete. And from across the way, he'd say, "Bueno, bueno, bueno, Janelle, bueno, David." And you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, that's not how you say hello in Mexico. It's not how you say hello." And it just cracked me up. It was so funny. And we all kind of heard it, and it was just funny. And it stuck with us. And sometimes even if he didn't say it, we'd say it first. "Bueno, Pete, bueno." And he'd say it right back. And it just stuck with us. So to this day, when we go to Mexico, when we travel, even our friends now have adopted the bueno. And they all know it's Pete. And we're not laughing or saying it because we're making fun or anything. It's because it's a term of endearment. We love him and we think about him, and it makes us smile and it warms our heart. So that's such a wonderful memory when I think about Pete. But, when I was thinking about what to say today and trying to find the right words and sentiment, I was looking around and I found a little something on the internet that I thought really, I felt like it defined Pete. And so I just wanted to share it with you guys today. So it's a little bit about what is success. So here it goes. To laugh often and love much. To win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children. To earn the respect and admiration of critics and endure the betrayal of friends. To appreciate beauty and to find the very best in other people. To give of oneself and to leave the world a little better, whether by a healthy child, a beautiful garden patch, or an improved social condition. To have played and laughed with great enthusiasm, and to know even one life has breathed a little bit better because you're in the world, because you lived. That is truly the definition of success, and I feel like that defines Pete. So I am just so proud to be a part of the Van Kirk Big Extended family, and I'm proud to be here tonight with the Wall of Witness and being able to share my experience. So I'm just so happy to be here. But I just want to say bravo, Pete Van Kirk, and bueno. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Derek Van Kirk, the youngest. Thank you all for coming out tonight. This is a great deal, really, is for us and our family. Dad would be especially proud to be up here with all these great Perry people. Very proud about it. And he'd be incredibly tickled to be beside Mr. Wallstrom up here. So we were glad to hear that. He really would. I'm serious when I say that. He had all our respect for Mr. Wallstrom. Thank you to the committee members that put him up in this wall. Bill, thank you for all the legwork you did, because I know you did a lot of legwork on this. And Rick, there you are. We enjoyed the visit with Rick because he liked the foundry as much as he liked talking about doing the sculpture. And so we took him on a tour, and believe me, he enjoyed every piece of that. So I think he might even be coming back sometime. And we also understand when he says about pinholes, we knew exactly what he meant. Yeah, we make scrap too every once in a while. Even Dad would say that, right? All the foundry people know that. So thank you all. I find it kind of a little bit ironic that Dad was not an artsy person, as you guys know. Here we are between two pieces of art that Dad stood for. So, neat deal. Thank you very much. Appreciate it from my dad and from our family.
Hello, I'm Joelle Miner, and Pete was my brother-in-law. I'm not like my niece and nephew. I have mine written, and forgive me if I stumble along or have to look down to read, but I think I'll do a better job that way. I would like to reflect on the Pete Van Kirk that we were blessed to call family when he married Joyce. I would have to say most of our family didn't really know Pete personally prior to that, but in a short time, he was a beloved part of our family. Our family has a special place to gather that is near and dear to all of us, and that's my mom's kitchen table. For years and years, this has been a safe place for conversations, debates, tears, and receiving encouragement and support. Pete was often at Mom's table, engaged in these conversations. We respected and valued his knowledge, his wisdom, and his many life experiences that he shared with us. Pete was Pete, no matter where he was or who he was with. He was down to earth with a whole lot of common sense. His delivery of his opinion or advice could be direct and matter of fact, whether in agreement or disagreement of another's thought. It was given with conviction and genuine care for the serious matters and with humor and love for the others. What you saw with Pete never changed based on who his audience was. He was authentic Pete 24/7. He was a person you might say was comfortable in his own skin. And it's probably a good thing because we all know he gave lots and lots of people the shirt off his back and much more over his lifetime. At our large family events, it seemed he always made his way around to the majority of us to sort of check in on our comings and goings. He often began the conversation with, "How's Joelle?" or "How's Jill?" or "How's Janelle?" And by that, he would get the conversation started, and you'd begin to tell him things you knew he didn't care about, but he would genuinely listen, and his response and continue to ask very thoughtful questions. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about our eccentric Joyce with her love for animals. Joyce, being a certified wildlife rescue person, meant that Pete was often surrounded by wildlife babies of this and babies of that, even in his own living space, with a few cats and dogs sprinkled in. He was so tolerant of, and I believe admiring of, all her goings-on and love for creatures. When the conversation of new arrivals, or at times a bit of an abundance at their home of wildlife would come up, he would grin and just kind of shake his head. However, he could put his foot down, and at times there would be something like, "Joyce, no more dogs." But then that one more dog would need a refuge, and before it could be adopted out, Pete was the only one attached to it. Pete had so many wonderful characteristics, of which most are going to be mentioned today. One that sticks with me is that he had a very tender heart. On 2 occasions, I saw Pete move to tears. One was a conversation about my son Trent quite a while after he had passed. The other was the day before his heart surgery. I took my mom to see him at the hospital. Mom had written her letter to the committee for the Wall of Witnesses quite some time before. Of course, Pete didn't know about it. However, just prior to his surgery, Pete was given a framed copy of Mom's letter. Sitting in his hospital bed with tears, he held my mom's hand and told her it was the nicest thing that had ever happened to him, verbatim. So you can just imagine what he would feel about today actually being honored from that letter. Pete was very special to all of us here, our community, and far beyond. To our family, he was a treasure, one that we are so thankful Joyce brought into our lives and that we will continue to love and cherish forever. Thank you to my mom, Helen, for nominating Pete, and to the committee for honoring Pete by adding him to this wall of witness.
Rick, that is my nose in that sculpture. You didn't take that from Dad. You took a picture of me and put that.
I needed the model. You were there. It looked like the same nose to me.
You know, being Dad's son, I don't remember him so popular when he was alive. And another thing that really struck me is when Rick was interviewing us, he said to Derek and I, you two boys seen your father out of a totally different set of eyes. I had never thought of that before. You know, I thought Derek seen Dad the way I seen Dad. And I seen Dad as a tough dude, you know. And by the way, David, when you said Dad listened well, I missed that part of his life. Because you know what I remember from Dad? What he'd tell me is he'd say, Kirk, you have one mouth and two ears. I wish you'd use them appropriately. But no, Derek and I both love Dad equally the same, but I'd never thought about how we seen Dad growing up totally different. As so many of you said today, Dad was that's where I get this. Dad was a compassionate person, and there was things that would touch him that, you know, just out of nowhere he'd start crying, and you know, it always set Derek and I back a little bit. Now we do it today, and Dad would struggle through this up and terrible. For one reason is he didn't like attention. He would have thought this was a waste of time and money and energy, and he would have told all you guys to go back to work, because that's what we do, you know. Us Van Kirks, we work. And you know, Dad's taught Derek and I a lot. He's given us our work ethics. He's given us, as Derek always told Dad, you gave us the opportunity. You gave us the opportunity to build this business. And Dad would say later on in life, and you gave me my retirement program. So you know, we had a great time working with Dad. We miss him dearly every day. We've left his office, and Rick and Bill, when they come to visit us, as a kind of a small museum and kind of a history of the foundry and all the above. You know, and we bring people in there and we kind of show them a little nostalgia about the foundry and about Dad, and some of this, I'm sure that's where it's going to end up in Dad's office, because Derek and I don't feel that we can fill Dad's shoes and move into his office, you know. And he's left some big shoes for us to fill. But he's given us some great insight towards community and towards, you know, helping other people all the time. Sometimes Dad taught me so much about that I could be up here for a long time. But you know, one story I told at his funeral, and I'll try and get it through it again tonight. In my younger years of my profession, we had an employee who was minimal at best. He had a lot of mental problems, capabilities, but he showed up for work every day, and he was there long before I came into the business. And his productivity was poor. So, you know, I went into Dad's office one time. We were always having kinds of problems. And I said, Dad, you know, I really think we should get rid of this guy. We had all kinds of reasons to get rid of him. And Dad said, okay, Kirk, you know, you're welcome to do so. But he says, when you do, he says, the guy comes to work every day. Yes, he doesn't get a lot done. But when you do, he does not have a purpose in life. And when you do, the government will then support him. The guy comes to work every day and he does the best possible job he can. And he said, he's doing something, Kirk. But then, here's how Dad always played it. He'd say, but Kirk, the decision's yours. Which, gee, many Christmas, I wish he would. But he did that a lot to Derek and I. He would say, the decision's yours. He would give a little bit of insight, but he never, ever made the decision for us. Now, the flip side is, Dad was hindsight 2020. Because when something went wrong, Dad would say, I told you that's the way that was going to happen. So that's just a little bit about Dad and, you know, our business world with him. You know, on another side note, here I go again. Dad and Joyce put the reps and the Van Kirks together. And it's a wonderful thing. There are stepsisters or stepbrothers and vice versa. I remember Janelle and I were in Des Moines one time and we were watching a football game and she had friends and I had friends, and for the first time it never dawned on me, she came over and introduced me to her friends as, this is my stepbrother. And Dad and Joyce have been married for 10 years, but that never dawned on me till that day that I have stepbrothers and stepsisters. And to see my stepbrother go through what he's trying to go through today hurts all of us. And we support Doug 100%. And I'm telling you guys, I've been spending some time with Doug, and for the life of me, I couldn't do it as well as he does it. Never has Doug ever said anything or ever been a victim of his situation. He constantly keeps trying to get better. That doesn't relate to this, but Doug and I went to Des Moines yesterday to Tommy Lowe's for therapy. And I thought about tonight, and I thought about Dad, and how crushed Dad would be to watch Doug go through what he's going through, but how supportive Dad would be. So, you know, Dad did a lot of wonderful things in this community, but going forward, the reps and the Van Kirks we're family. And I thank you guys for that. Thank you, everyone.
I don't have any notes. Just one quick note about Pete. Jude and I came to Perry in 1967. And Pete called me and he said, "Are you the drawing teacher at the high school?" I said, "I'm the architectural drafting teacher at the high school. What do you need?" He said, "I've got this foundry down here." Heck, I hardly even knew what a foundry was. He said, "I'd like for you to draw the plans." So I spent the whole summer drawing the plans of the foundry. And for you guys that were there in the core room, you know what ammonia smells like. But I was there. I just have to tell you that Pete gave me tours through the foundry, and the tradition has continued because Jackson has taken me, dropped me off in his office. It's just like the day it was he left it. Thank you very much. Thank you. I hope I haven't missed someone that, particularly with the family, that really appreciate the remarks that we've had, and obviously it tells a lot about the man. I wanted to close with a couple of stories before that I think from an outsider's perspective, not someone from the family, but obviously through the years, and I know some of you think that I must raise money for about 10 different organizations because I'm always got my hand out when I meet you. But obviously, I had lots of contact with Pete through the years, and I'll tell two quick ones that will in no way be as meaningful as what you've heard already, but they tell a little bit about the man that I came to know. I was the chair of the capital campaign for the DMAC Career Academy, and we worked very hard along with many team members from Perry Economic Development, Perry Industries, the schools, to bring this to fruition. And we called on Pete and Derek and Kirk when we wanted to get a lead gift for the Career Academy. And they not only were receptive to the money we were asking for, but there was one thing Pete was not receptive to. And that is, I don't mind giving the money, but I don't want my name on it. And it took me quite a bit of talking. Kirk can tell the story, but it took me more than one call on him in order to tell him that the right thing to do in this case was to leave a legacy with Des Moines Area Community College and the City of Perry with that lead gift. Well, if that wasn't enough, I mean, it was a tremendous gift, and we were able to finally convince Pete that it was okay for us to make that the Van Kirk Career Academy. And so I was taking the family on a pre-tour. You know, when you're the lead gifter, you get a pre-tour to some of these things. And so I was taking the family on a pre-tour, and you know, we'd raised nearly $4 million for this Career Academy, but we didn't have it all raised. And so Joyce and Pete were walking along by me as we went through and looking at the wonderful things that appear at that Career Academy, and Pete said, "Clark, come here." He said, "What are you short for this thing?" And I gave him a number, and he said, "You're not short anymore," he and Joyce, and I'm very grateful to you for your philanthropic ways, but it tells you a little bit about the man. So with that, I want to close our time together. Again, you know about the reception we have here. I want to say thank you again to Hotel Pattee for their graciousness to not only the wall of witnesses, but the contributions tonight. If you will stay for dinner, please pick up one of these cards about the programming we have going on, including tomorrow evening at the State Historical Museum. There is a program. It says September 18th on your card, but it's actually tomorrow evening from 5:15 to 7:15, and that whole schedule of things that we'll be doing at Hometown Heritage as part of the National Endowment for the Humanities grant. With that, I'd like to say thank you for coming tonight. Please stay for the reception and the refreshments that have been provided for you, and visit with one another, visit with the family. And thanks again. Thank Rick to you, and thanks to the family, Joyce and all, for your comments. We really appreciate your support. Good night. To the punch.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.